Hey everybody, I'm here with Frank Turner in Hamilton at the First Ontario Centre, just before his sold-out show with the Arkells. How's it going, Frank?
Very well, thank you.
Nice Pleasure to see you.
Yeah.
So I was just curious, you've sold out Wembley and you've played these crazy arenas, and is it comfortable for you now?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, I always want to be quite careful with my language about that, because, like, you know, being on a stage is where I feel comfortable in life. It's the thing I know how to do. Mm-hmm. But I don't want it to ever sound like I'm like bored by the process.
For
you know
sure,
what I mean?
for sure.
Like, I don't get nervous before shows anymore, really, unless it's something wildly out of the ordinary. But that doesn't mean I'm not excited to play. I love playing. It's my favorite thing. But I mean, in terms of like nerves, like the last time I really got nervous was when I played for my nephew's primary school class, and there was like 37-year-olds. And then I was really nervous because I didn't know what to expect, because I'm out of my comfort zone. But like, I know how tonight's going to go. I think it's going to be great. I'm really excited
for sure, yeah. But I read that you said you started touring at the age of 16. Mm-hmm. So obviously you haven't always been selling out crazy big arenas. But at the beginning, in the early years, what motivated you to get into music? Was it a gut feeling that told you you were meant to do it, or was it something you had to work at?
Yeah, well, I mean, my parents are into like classical music and church music and stuff, and I first heard any kind of rock and roll, like, while I was paying attention, was I got into Maiden, and I saw the Freddie Mercury tribute concert on TV as well, which ages me rather specifically, but it's true. And both of those events kind of really just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I've just never felt as kind of like touched or excited by anything as I have by rock and roll, you know, and that was true then, and that was in 1991, and it's still true now in 2017, you know, and it's just it's the only thing that really kind of gets me. Yeah,
for sure. And when you started doing this kind of musical journey that you've been going on, you have the motto DIY, do it yourself. So do you still kind of hold that in?
Well, I'm not sure I would describe it as my motto. I mean, I definitely came up with the DIY scene. Like, and within the punk scene, there's a strong kind of ethos of DIY. And I mean, it's contentious as to what precisely that means. Obviously, it's very clear what it means at the bottom of the food chain, in the sense that it just means, like, if no one else putting you on a show, then you put on your own show, and then you put out your own record, and you book your own tour, and all that kind of thing. And I definitely did all of that stuff when I started out. You know, when I was in a band called Knee Jerk, we put out 2 releases ourselves, and we used to book our own shows. We booked our first tour when we were 16 with a payphone and like a bunch of phone numbers someone had given us, you know. And we did all that kind of thing. And for a lot of people, that's all the DIY can ever be. I mean, personally, to me, I like to think more that it's about the ethos of just not waiting around for stuff to get done. And, you know, at the moment in time when I have somebody who will release my records for me, that's cool, because it frees up my time to do other things, you know. And if somebody's going to book the shows, that's great. That gives me more time, and there's no way that one person could organise the world that exists. For sure, anyway. But you know, if I have people who work at that stuff who are better at it than me anyway, you know, that gives me more times to write more songs, or have side projects, or, you know, write articles, or any sort of creative endeavour I want to do. So, I mean, I like to think the same ethos still inspires, but I mean, there are people in the punk scene who would disagree with that, and I think that's probably legit as well.
For sure. And what was the music scene like when you were starting out in England and in your hometown and everything around there?
Well, there wasn't anything in my hometown in Winchester, really. I mean, there was a small metal scene, and I had some good times with some people who I'm still friends with back then, but there was not much happening. But I figured out how to get to London on the train, and in London they had the London hardcore scene in the late 90s was really, there was something going on at that point in time. And I mean, when I say something, I mean like a big show would be like 400 people kind of thing. But there were bands like Knuckle Dust, Special Move, 9 Bar, Stamping Ground. There was a sort of, and there was Household Name Records, and later Blackfish Records, and there was a real sort of sense that something was going on, and we were really kind of like, I mean, I was definitely kind of on the fringes of that scene because I was really young. I was like 15 when I started going. But, you know, people were kind of making something happen, and it was really exciting, and that was very inspirational for me. So.
And starting out doing that, obviously there's a lot of struggles as a musician, but also in any art or career, there's a lot of struggles going into it. So when you were that age, and that's a quite young age to kind of begin doing this type of thing and going on that path, but like the struggles of both money and time and trying to figure all that out, like what would you say was the, I mean all of them together, but would you say that there was a top kind of struggle or hardship that you faced?
I mean, the thing is, it moves through different phases, because it was definitely at a hobby level for me at that beginning thing, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I mean, plus I'm 15, I mean, like, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
You know, 15, 16, 17, 18, and it was just kind of a thing I did on school holidays or like on weekends, and like, you know, with Knee Jerk, my first band, when we'd play shows, we'd lose money, and that was fine because that was our hobby. So it was like other people would pay to go to, I don't know, a football match or something, and we'd go and do a gig, and that was just kind of how it worked, and that wasn't really an issue. There was definitely a sort of transitional period in my life when I left school and I was at university for a little bit, and trying to kind of move towards a period of time where I could do music full time. That transitional period is the hard bit, and I think that anybody who does any kind of art full time knows exactly what I'm talking about. There's a point in time where you have to kind of ditch the day job, and it's a leap of faith, because there's a gap between the amount that you can do it as a part-time thing and then making a living out of it full time. Plus the other thing is, like, I don't think anybody really wants to focus on the money aspect of it. Nobody does it, or at least I certainly don't do this for money, you know what I mean? And I think that people who do are idiots. But so, you know, it's kind of, that is the hard part, is like going from the like, well, I've got a day job, pays bills and pays my rent, and then I take as much time off from that job as I can, and at the weekends and the evenings and stuff to play shows. Going from that to trying to tour full time, you have to just kind of close your eyes and jump at some level, and it doesn't work out for everybody, and it's scary and it's hard, and you lose money and friends, and you end up living in shitty places or nowhere at all, and all that kind of thing. And I went through that, and like I say, I think anybody who makes a full-time living out of art did that at some point too. For
sure. So on that kind of idea of change in the transitional period, going from one thing to another, I guess from where you were then to where you are now, obviously you think change is good and growth is good, and you've once said that being out of your comfort zone is one of the key aspects to growth.
Yeah.
And I was just curious if you could maybe talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think, I mean, that to me, at this point in my life and in my career, is a question about art more than necessarily about the kind of like logistical structure of my life. Although, I mean, I am occasionally seized by a desire to just like fuck off and go traveling for a year or something, or like go and work in a bar in Ecuador or something, you know, and just do something out of the ordinary to kind of push myself. I mean, you know, I earn a passable living doing what I do now, and I'm grateful for that. I try not to take it for granted, but you know, I don't have to worry about paying my bills on a day-to-day basis these days. So that's cool, but like the comfort zone thing is more just like, you know, I'm trying to push myself creatively in directions that I've not gone before, and do things I don't know how to do. I think that, you know, it's tempting to, particularly if you've done something that's been successful to a degree, to try and just do that again. And I think that that's a pretty dishonest motive for making art.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and the finance side of it, you know, I mean, the age-old debate that everybody has is between art and commerce, and like the commerce side of it comes into it as well. It's sort of like, you know, I like playing big shows, and I like being able to pay my rent, and it's tempting to play it safe as a result, you know, artistically, and I try really hard not to do that, because I think that's artistically dishonest. So I try and let the art win the argument at all points.
For sure.
I mean, how successful I am at that is not really for me to judge, but I'm trying.
Yeah, for sure. Changing pace a little bit. I know a lot of people that I know personally, and a lot of people around kind of the world, and especially in a lot of small towns where I'm from, a lot of people don't really feel comfortable in their own skin, and a lot of times they need to find something to kind of be the medium in which they can feel comfortable and show their true personality. And I was just curious if this has affected you in any way, and if it has, what advice you might give to somebody that's going through something similar.
Well, I mean, yeah, 100,000,000% definitely. I mean, something that, one of the sort of encouraging things, this is a roundabout answer to the question, but I get it.
For sure.
Like, I was playing in hardcore bands and punk bands and stuff like that, and that was fun. And then Million Dead, my last hardcore band, was in, broke up, and I started playing acoustic shows, and everybody, or nearly everybody, thought I'd kind of like was having some kind of episode, like I'd lost my mind. Like, certainly that kind of route from punk rock singer to acoustic guitar was much less well trod back in 2005. And I sort of started playing these kind of like folk shows, and let's say most people in the music industry and most people in the music press thought I was kind of laughably done at the time for doing it. But my best friend said to me that he thought that I looked comfortable in my skin doing it, and he'd never really seen that in me before. And the songs, he said the songs that I was singing sounded like me in a way that the hardcore stuff I'd done didn't, sort of thing. And just, he said it looked like I knew where I was supposed to be when I was on stage. And that's kind of, I think I'd sort of had that feeling without quite putting it into words before that. And this is still at the point where I'm playing like 5 people at a show on a good night, you know? But it was just, that was such a huge vote of confidence for me that he would say that, because that is how I felt, and I'm not, apart from when I'm on a stage playing music, I'm not a huge cheerleader for myself. I don't think masses of myself or feel particularly good about myself apart from that, which is one of the reasons why I do it all the time.
Yeah, it must be a big motivator.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, in a way, like, in terms of advice, I mean, like, I sort of feel a little ill-qualified for that, because I've been so incredibly fortunate to stumble across something that not only that I love and that I am passionate about, but also, and I don't want to sound arrogant saying this, but like that I can do to a degree, with a degree of skill that means that I can do a lot.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And like, I sort of fell into that at quite an early age, and I feel really fortunate for doing that. And I mean, like, I hope that everybody can find that thing. I mean, I'm not sure how I would go about looking for it if I didn't know where it was. I found Iron Maiden, and it made me feel good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so would you say Iron Maiden is one of the big inspirations from your past as well? Like your
Yeah, I mean, Iron Maiden were definitely my gateway band into rock and roll, full stop, you know, and I have an Iron Maiden tattoo on my leg. I have a tattoo of the first record I ever bought, which was Killers, which is the best Iron Maiden album. But like, the thing about that is more that, I'm not sure that the music I write these days is very much influenced by Iron Maiden, but the one thing I would say about them is that they're a band who quite aggressively didn't give a fuck about prevailing trends or fashion. Yeah. You know, Iron Maiden have always been Iron Maiden, and fuck everybody else.
Yeah,
and like,
they're gonna do their thing.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of cool. I like the way they've never been cool, and they've never cared about that.
They've never had to uphold a social image, they've just done what they've wanted to do.
And like, something that I've learned over the years of kind of reading about and listening to and being immersed in punk, which is definitely my sort of like main thing that I care about in life, but like, punk is pretty fashion conscious in a way that I find slightly disappointing, because as a kid who felt completely alienated and out of place in the world, well, the attraction of both punk and metal for me was that it was this world that kind of said, who gives a fuck, man, be you. You know, and then there's a fairly large chunk of the punk world which doesn't adhere to that principle, which I find quite disappointing. And I try quite hard to make my shows, the places that I have control over, be places where no one gives a fuck about who you are, what you look like, or what you choose to do with your life.
Yeah, I can definitely say from personal experience, being a fan of your music, you know, it definitely gives off the tone, and being at a concert of yours, it definitely makes you feel like you're not being judged in the environment.
Well,
and you're just, you know,
that's a huge compliment, man. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
That means a lot.
Yeah, I was curious if you had any quote from anybody in the world that has resonated with you. Offhand, I mean, if not.
Yeah, I mean, the one that sticks with me right now that I've been thinking about a lot, because I'm in the middle of writing a new record right now, and as I was saying, I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone, and one of the things about that, the sort of downside of that, as we've sort of touched on, is that might well alienate some of my existing fan base or whatever, and blah blah blah, and there's a great Bob Dylan quote, which is just, if you ain't busy being born, you're busy dying. Yeah. And I think that's a great attitude to have about creativity.
For sure.
You know, and it's just like, if you're not consciously doing something new, then you're already rotting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, you gotta fucking
get at it.
Yeah, you gotta find new ways to do things. I mean, obviously, not all of us. In fact, only one of us can be Bob Dylan.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, I think you have to be a little cautious about trying to be Bob Dylan in life. Yeah. But I think it's a good maxim.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've never heard that one before, but I definitely see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I find that's quite reassuring.
Yeah,
to be like, yeah, fuck it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It gives you a motivation when you're questioning something. You know what? Why not? Take the chance. There's no harm in it, right?
Yeah.
So currently you're on tour with the Arkells.
Yes.
And how's the tour been going so far? And are you excited for the rest of the tour?
Yeah, I mean, we're reaching the end of it now, or at least of the Canadian run when we're opening for them. The bills flipped when we were in the States. They were opening for us. Okay. And then now that we're in Canada, which is their home turf, obviously. Sure. We open for them, and I mean, tonight's the big one.
Yes,
and like, it's ridiculous how big the show is tonight. It's like 10,000 cap, and we're sold out. So that's pretty awesome, and I feel great for the Arkells guys. It's been a long time. I mean, I don't want to say this in a way that denigrates anybody else, but like, it's been a long time since I've felt quite such a connection with another band that we've met on tour.
For sure.
Everybody in my band is in love with everybody in the Arkells, and I like to think vice versa.
Yeah.
You know, we just have, I mean, the music we make isn't 100% similar, but I think we have a very similar kind of, I think Max and I definitely kind of worship at the altar of songwriting.
For sure.
Over and above any kind of stylistic consideration, you know. And I think we're both quite nerdy about the history of rock and roll in a similar way. Actually, one of the things they've got me singing a bunch of Motown songs with them this evening, and it was kind of funny because like he was like you know Motown, right? And I was like, yeah, I know Motown, and then he picked 3 songs out of the hat, and 2 of which I knew, and one of which I was like, shit, I didn't know that one. So I've been learning the lyrics, all day today. But yeah, it's great. They're wonderful guys, and I really hope that our sort of friendship and affinity as bands continues for a long time.
No, for sure. And I guess like in the similar topic of enjoying the moment and enjoying being on tour with this band that you do have a connection with, do you ever find it hard to really be present in the moment? Or like, I mean, with all this stuff going on, like, I mean, from my perspective, it would seem really simple and really easy to just kind of get caught up in everything and not take every experience for what it is.
So yeah, I guess I know what you mean. I mean, first of all, like I like to think I have a fair degree of practice at sort of like being good at being on tour or whatever. I think one of the things that I like about being on tour is the focus, in the sense that like nothing else matters other than the show.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what time you got up. It doesn't matter what you drank last night. It doesn't matter what you had to eat. It doesn't matter who was at the show and who isn't. You got to do a fucking show at this time, for this long, and it's got to be good.
Yeah.
And everything else is secondary to that. Yeah. And there's a kind of like, there's a relentlessness about that which I really enjoy. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of kind of like not letting things pass you by, there's definitely been tours where I've just seen nothing other than dressing rooms and car parks for months on end.
Yeah.
And like part of me feels bad about that. I mean, on the flip side of it, it's like I'm not on holiday. I'm working. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But like stuff like. Just like when somebody emailed me the other day and I had a day off in DC and he offered me like a behind the scenes tour of the House of Representatives in DC, and like it's tempting to kind of go, I'm kind of tired and I want to sit in my room and watch Netflix.
Yeah. And
I've sort of got a rule with myself trying to say yes to that stuff these days, and I'm always super glad that I do.
Yeah.
If I can make the time work, it's always just like, yeah.
Yeah, it ends up being something that made it worth it.
Yeah, totally, and it's good to keep on that stuff. But like I say, the show is the focus of what we do.
No, of course. And speaking of the show, after the tour with the Arkells, you're going to be going on tour with Blink-182.
Yes.
Tell me about that. That's pretty exciting.
Well, I mean, I'm feeling it's quite funny how that came about. I mean, I'm a Blink-182 fan. Like, I'm one of those assholes who was really into Dude Ranch.
Yeah.
Like when that came out, and then was a bit like, oh, it's a bit too clean these days. When it's taken out. But no, I don't want it. They're an incredible band, and in particular recently, so Skiba's a good friend of mine, and Skiba joined Blink, and it was like, oh my god, dude, that's amazing. So I sort of congratulated him at the time, and then when they announced the tour in the UK, it's the biggest tour in the UK this year, like hands down.
100%.
And it got announced, and there was no supports on the poster. Actually, funnily enough, it got announced when we were in Toronto with Arkells back in November.
Really?
And it sort of came up on like my news feed somewhere or something, and I was just like, motherfucker, I want that tour.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I put in I sort of called my booking agent, I called my manager, and they were all like, well, yeah, I mean, so does everybody. I mean, we'll give it a try.
Yeah.
And I was just like, fuck this, I'm calling Skiba. So I called Matt, and I was like, dude, like, hook me up. And he was like, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
it was really funny. He just told me they just had a band meeting when they had been drawn a blank on who should open the UK tour.
That's crazy.
I was just like, I'm here.
Jeez.
So they all kind of discussed it and got back, and they've taken us out, and I'm really grateful for it. They're a great band. It's good, watch and learn.
No, for sure.
And then hopefully we'll make some new friends.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I can't even imagine the excitement getting that call. Jeez.
Yeah, it was like when it was just like, come on, Matt, come on, Matt, and then it came through.
Man, that's awesome. You know, I can share the feeling. I'm really thankful and grateful that you were open to this interview.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
very happy with it.
Always.
And as a closing question, the video series is called the Experience Video Series.
Okay.
And it's attempting to make people realize about the smaller things in life and kind of pay attention to the things that matter most. So I was just curious, in your own words, what the word experience means to you.
Oh, well, experience is kind of like my currency that I care about in life. One of the things that I love about touring, and any touring person or anyone who tours for a long time will tell you this, if you ask me, or if you tell me what I was doing 2 weeks ago today, in fact, you know what? I'm gonna look it up. What's the date today?
The 10th.
It's the 10th. So like the 26th, let's say. 26th. I was. Oh my God. Yeah, this is exactly my point. I was in Phoenix 2 weeks ago.
Jeez.
That show feels like it was about 6 months to a year ago.
Really?
Yeah. And like the idea that that was only 2 weeks is kind of madness to me.
Yeah.
And it's to do with the amount of traveling you do and the amount of stuff that happens in any one individual day and doing slightly different things every day and all the rest of it. But like that to me is that's why I like touring, is because wow, that means life is lasting longer. There's more experiences, there's more shit going on, you know. And I think about the fact that we got white hatted in Calgary on stage the other day.
So cool.
And that was cool. And then like yesterday we went to a polar bear sanctuary in Cochrane, Ontario.
Yeah.
And the day before I played a show in Thunder Bay because I was drunk and it was an open mic night and some of the people there knew who I was.
Yeah.
You know, and just like to be able to have that many different experiences day on day is a huge privilege, but it's also the thing that I've set up my life to try and maximize. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just
sure.
like I can try and make sure that shit happens often.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Man, well, honestly, thank you so much for the interview.
It's been a lot of fun, man. Thank you. It's been a good time.
Alright, Cross, let's fucking do